Stephen Kinnock.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'd like to start by saying how grateful I am that we have been able to secure this debate. Ever since last month's announcement of 750 job losses at the Port Talbot Steelworks, I've been calling for a full and comprehensive debate on the future of British steel. The Tata Steelworks in Port Talbot is the beating heart of my Aberavon constituency. These job losses and those that are sure to follow along the supply chain are a devastating blow. The Secretary of State will be aware that, following that announcement, Tata have been working on a rescue plan which will be discussed by the Tata board in Mumbai at a critically important meeting at the end of next month. I'd therefore like to start this debate today my remarks today by imploring the government to give their full support to the rescue plan by, for example, ensuring that there is proper investment support to improve the plant's premium products capabilities. Such support would help in converting the Capel line into a galvanising line, thereby better serving the automotive market. Can the Minister also confirm that she will urge the Chancellor to give a firm and positive commitment on enhanced capital allowance to allow the Welsh Government Tata Task Force to move forward in establishing an enterprise zone in Port Talbot? Madam Deputy Speaker, I'd now like to focus on what the Government should be doing at national and European level. Madam Deputy Speaker, it's well known that this Government operates inside a fog of laissez-faire ideology. Its modus operandi is to pray to the gods of the free market and to hope for the best. But what is fascinating to observe is that this steel crisis is cutting through that fog and forcing the Tories to understand a very simple truth, which is when the market fails, then government should intervene. The market economy can only function effectively if it is regulated. Just as a game of football requires the offside rule to ensure fair competition, so the British steel industry requires the right regulatory framework so that it can be given a fighting chance on a level playing field. The impact of the market failure and of the government's failure to intervene to fix it is being felt around the country by the thousands of steel workers and their families. They are victims of the government's laissez-faire doctrine. They are the victims of the government's failure to stand up for British steel. All of us here today will be aware of the 5 industry asks. The government like to boast of delivering on 4 out of these 5 asks, but a cursory glance at the scorecard demonstrates how disingenuous this claim is. Take the compensation package for energy-intensive industries. 5 years after the Chancellor accepted the need for it, the money still hasn't arrived. Perhaps the cheque got lost in the Christmas post. And what about procurement? No tangible evidence of any change. If there were, then why on earth is the MOD's latest order for a set of Royal Navy frigates going to be based on Swedish steel? And why would a government seriously committed to supporting the Welsh steel industry still be flip-flopping on the Swansea Bay tidal lagoon? But most disingenuous of all is surely the government's claim that it's acting against the dumping of anti-competitive subsidised Chinese steel. If anyone doubts the acute impact of Chinese steel dumping, then they should just look at rebar. From almost no market share in 2011, Chinese rebar now accounts for almost half the UK market. That is the cost, Mr. Speaker, of 5 years of Conservative government. 5 years in the fog of laissez-faire dogma and inaction. 5 years of watching the storm clouds gather on the horizon whilst refusing to strengthen the flood defences. 5 years of rolling out the red carpet for Beijing rather than standing up for the men and women who form the backbone of the British economy. Could I therefore implore the benches opposite to resist the temptation to blame Labour? The exponential growth in Chinese market share has taken place since 2011, on their watch. Let's accept that fact and move on. The growth in Chinese market share is only possible because of Beijing's subsidies and market distortion. 70% of Chinese steelmakers are state-owned. In light of this fact alone, who, in all seriousness, could possibly see China as a market economy? I'll tell you who, Madam Deputy Speaker, the British government. Yes, our very own government has taken it upon itself to become some sort of outpost of the Chinese PR machine. UK Steel, Tata and Community have all stated unequivocally that the granting of market economy status to China would probably be the last nail in the coffin for UK steelmaking. And yet the Prime Minister and his government are actively lobbying in Brussels and across Europe for China to be granted that status. The question on this will be taken in December. There is still time for the government to change its mind. There's still time for the government to be a cheerleader for Britain rather than a lobbyist for Beijing. But market economy status is not the only area where the government is actively undermining the British steel industry. It's become widely recognised in Europe that the lesser duty rule is killing our industry. Indeed, the European Commission proposed that it was scrapped, and that was supported by the European Parliament. And yet, the UK continues to be the ringleader in blocking the scrapping of the lesser duty rule. I've grown used to warm words being matched by frozen actions, but this is much worse. On trade defence and the lesser duty rule, this government have publicly declared their undying commitment to British steel, whilst behind closed doors they've been consciously conspiring to undermine the British steel industry. The gaping chasm that exists between their words and their deeds needs to be explained, and I hope that they will do so in the near future. We need a government that's committed to a long-term industrial strategy, to a Britain that's committed more to Britain than it is to Beijing, not spinning a line in public whilst agitating for the opposite behind closed doors. We need a government that will stand up for British steel.